Are you serious? I've been live for... I don't even have my camera up. Oh my god, I'm such a mess. I've been live for about 3 minutes, and I don't even have a single audio channel doing anything. Thought my desktop audio was playing that jazz. Huh. Wow. Boo. Get your booze out. Get your booze out. This is what happens. Desktop audio capture. Restart capture. Okay. Now it's started. Now if I were to play. Ooh. Ooh, this is that sweet jazz. Ooh, that sweet jazz. Welcome, one and all. I had an audio splits. Let's see if I can get the camera set up as well. We can set up this as well. Spoilers.
This week on Detective Michael and
Oh my god.
Son.
Detective Michael and Son.
Trent,
What do
believe it, guys?
This is how I'm feeling tonight. This is what we're setting the mood with is
Believe
some
it, guys?
Christmas spirit.
Christmas, just a week away. Christmas is in a week. Woohoo! I am so happy about this information.
In fact,
Christmas, just a week away. Oh wow!
I will see if I
Can you believe it? Christmas,
get some
just in a week.
Christmassy music.
It got here so
There's
fast.
one that's live that I can
Christmas-
see, but I can't tell if it's I love that meme. It's so funny. It is the funniest thing I've seen. Every time I reference it all the time, and no one ever understands it, and I get so sad, but it's okay. I don't have to understand it, and no one can see it. No one can. I'm heard though, and I'm heard nice, crispy, and clear by a surprise that will come once I get this camera on. Let's say we have cam. No. All right. So what this calls for?
Believe it, guys? Christmas, just a week away.
I
Christmas is in a week. Woohoo! I am
don't
so
know if when is Christmas? Is it a week away? Let's see it. Christmas right now is today. What day is today? Today's the 13th. Christmas is 1 week and 5 days. It's 2 weeks away. Guys, we're just a bit ahead of the curve, but that is okay. This season moves super quick, so we got to extend it just a little bit, right? We can start saying Christmas is just a week away because it's going to feel like it's only been a week. Come on, let people have fun. That's what I always say about people who don't let anyone go to like Thanksgiving parties before Christmas parties before Thanksgiving. I think that's silly. I think that's like you're cutting and splicing things where things don't need to be cut and spliced. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. It is time to say that. It is appropriate to say that. I have said that since November 1st, and I will continue to say it. What I will also continue to do is try and figure out what the hell is up with my application capture. Let's say Safari. Okay. What is this? Ah, here we go. And cam. Properties come to iPhone. And then iPhone. Oh no. Is at 1%. Oh my god. Yet I've plugged it in. Here we come. You don't need to hear the sound of my voice. I will put you on to the sound of this sweet jazz. I'm also doing business. The reason today I am such a mess, which I will discuss once I have my iPhone camera set up, and here I almost do. The reason I've been such a mess today. Oh boy. Does this have desktop audio? I don't believe it does. We'll see if I can insert that. macOS audio capture. There you go. And I will turn that down so it is not competing with me. The reason I have been so discombobulated in this past moments that I have been live to one consecutive viewer for a total of 3 seconds, alfalfa, is that me just came from a party and I was having fun. So, you can't blame me. We're going to turn that this way and we're going to clear that. As you might have been able to tell a second ago, and probably still can, look what I've got. It's a new microphone. And I think I made the right audio adjustments to make it sound crisp and clear for a Twitch audience. Today, the agenda the agenda of today, after having not even blasted off on any socials anywhere, I'm gonna say live on Twitch, but I have to address the agenda for today before I blast off. And blast off, I mean, like, just like, let niggas know I'm live. Is let me change that. 2. This is the second day of exploring the Gospel of Thomas. Camera is off. There is discombobulation. But it will not persist forever. Center stage effect is active on the selective device. Here we go. Cool. This will all stack up. Trust. I'll try at least, at the very least. This is the duck and weave of the dawn. That's what the dawn does. Fuck the dawn. That's my obligatory political introduction. Are you serious? Are you goddamn serious? What are we looking at? Okay. Okay, it's jumping. Fine. What we'll discuss today. I actually didn't want to discuss the Gospel of Thomas anymore. Not until I have an audience to bounce the rest of it back off of.
Christmas, just a week away.
But I went live with it being that. So that's just what we're going to do today. I don't care about any of that. One of the themes that might come up, I don't know if it does necessarily. It doesn't have to. You can see it, right? These are themes. These are narratives. This is what it means to like work through the world, is to understand what the story of your life is, and how some parts of that story affect other parts of that story. How like these characteristics, these building blocks of stories, like nudge against each other to like create what your life is. Eventually, you can get set up and you can get ready if you just struggle a little hard, right? Not just like toughen through it. You'll get the way through it. It's like what you're doing, what you want to achieve, will come in some way if you keep going for it. But reality will chip away pieces of it in such a way as to reveal, like, visually to you in terms of, like, what that can actually be, by disrupting your vision for what you want. Like what you want to see, what you have, right? Let's say you have one ideal. This is the deal. This is the ideal. This is the good, right? That's the good that you want to achieve, and you want this good to be achieved. And so you think to achieve this ideal, you got to go this way. But you don't have all the perspective of all of life because, whoops, turns out your life isn't necessarily set in stone, right? There are probabilities involved, right? If we take that approach, right? Because you can take other approaches. If we take the approach that there are probabilities involved, right? Look what happens. You have another circle, but look, this circle is slightly off, and it is lurking over in the corner. Looks like your circle, right? But it's this one that you actually go to, right? If you just set your ideal to what's most circular. Whatever you think is the truth doesn't matter. Your ideal will take you in this direction. It's like a magnetic pull. It's like a, just follow it. Your intentions will lead to it reflecting into the world, because generally, like, psychologically, if you stick to your intentions before anything else, like certain people will have like certain bad intentions in the industries that you go to, right? And maybe those people will like want to like fuck you over, and if you don't have like your ideal set, if you're not grounded in that position of I want something circular, if you're not able to trim those off, you might end up falling in the exact hole you didn't want to fall into, thinking you were gonna go where you wanted to go. It's helpful in life as a story, right? It's a useful tool, but it's also exactly the tool. It's exactly the narrative that I think humanity has the possibility to follow in terms of how we move politically. Merry Christmas. In terms of how we move politically, let's say this is capitalism, right? This is communism, right? This is the this actually we don't need to make those the things, because communism isn't even a part of the conversation. If someone were to hear communism, they'd be like, "Oh shit, yeah, that's like, yeah, I fucking need that. Like, what the fuck? Like, everybody, yeah, no. This is like, we're vacationing. We're done. That's communism. This is the moneyless, classless, stateless society in which, like, you can say right now, human nature is that, like, we're greedy, but this is a world post-greed. This is a world post-scarcity, post-greed. This is a world in which everyone is like all the stores, all the prices are free because everyone trusts everyone to be able to contribute to the community enough to like give back, and leads like a circle of mutual aid and trust, right? That's what communism like aspires to. Some say that it's the movement towards that. Some say that is the moneyless, classless society that is at the end of that, right? This is our ideal that we have, that we want to achieve right now. This is socialism. This is the epitome of capitalism in this very moment in time, which is the workers owning the means of production as opposed to the capitalist owning the means of production. What are the means of production? These are tools. These are opportunities. You can say these are money, right? That's capital, right? That's the means of production, right? You could say it's the ability to store money. It's the ability to do that thing. That's a fair way to say that, right? It's look some more things. The means of production. What does that mean? What does that mean? You might start thinking means of production. Production? Think of the word production. What does that remind you of? Maybe a sweatshop. Ooh. Sorry. This is actually a regular factory that is fine. That has no bad intentions, right? Just creates regular teddy bears. Regular teddy bears then flow and are given more and are given to other people for money. Like this person has money and it gives to that person, right? And this person gets the teddy bear, that person doesn't, right? What is this money? What does this represent? This represents the extra value that this person had, right? This represents the extra the extra oomph that it took to turn like a bunch of like fabric and what's it called stuffing into a teddy bear, right? The effort that it took for those things to come together is what this value represents. That's what that value represents, right? And because he did the work, he should get that, is what like most people would say is a good thing, right? Yes, everybody agrees that. But some people say, because now, let's say, I'm tired of making more teddy bears, and there are so many people, right? There are so many people. Oh my God. Too many. I can't make enough teddy bears quick enough because there's so goddamn many. Whoops. Guess I gotta hire one of these. I gotta take one of these guys, teach him how to work, let's say, yeah, this one. Sure, why not? Teach this guy how to work to make this teddy bear. Those teddy bears. Now you can make so much more and give one teddy bear to each of the proletariat. Oh my God, I said the word. These teddy bears, can we change the color? I don't know. I don't care. I think this is a nice color. I don't think this is an issue. This will come later. All these guys get goddamn teddy bears, right? And this guy, oh my God. Wait, hold on. And because this guy got so many teddy bears, he gets so much money, right? Because he is the point at which they get the teddy bears, and he's saying, wait, actually, I'm gonna keep most of this money, right? How many teddy bears is there? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is $4. I'm gonna keep most of this dollars and give this guy $1. The cost it gets to buy one teddy bear, right? Even though he did the effort, the value, of making 4 more teddy bears or 3 more teddy bears or something like that, right? And he did so much work and he did so much effort, and this guy didn't do none of it and only like told people what to do, and he gets some sort of like comeuppance for all of this, right? And then he flaunts it and then he makes a line of distinction between the ones who get the stuff and the ones who don't. Right now, this is class stuff. Right, this is where that starts. But this guy, long ago, wasn't the worst thing in the world. Actually, started off in humble beginnings against squares. The fucking this is like the basic. This is what we've come to understand, right? These are all the contradictions. This is the story. This is the narrative. That leftward people like push to share. This is the class consciousness. This is what is the story of you if you are a worker. If you are not one of these people right here, right? This person, let's go back into the past, right? Let's say, or forward into the past. Ooh, no, okay. This right here is the nobles, right? That is the people at the top, right? There used to be multiple of these guys, so many of these guys, and there were like multiple levels, right? There would be a knight, like at some level. Actually, there's still, hold on. Knight. That will be useful for later. Okay. Yeah. And then you'd have these guys, right? You'd have these people at the bottom. They would do the work, right? For the people here, right? Or for the people here, right? Here were the people, but they weren't the very, very tippy top, right? We can go all the way up. But basically it's like stacks and stacks and layers up until it gets to the king, right? This is the feudal system. It's so much more repressive. It's so much more like these guys were so much more doing so much of this work. Like living on like certain land, being locked, wouldn't like leave like a certain like little plot of land for their entire lives. Live and die. We're controlled by the state. Basically we're assets. For whatever the king wanted to do that day. Especially eat. Oh, eat. Did they eat? Oh, did they eat? Right? Oh, did they indulge? These guys. Because they didn't have a say. They didn't have a say, right? None of these bears. Maybe like one, right? Would stay in the community and would be with the local knight or the local taxpayer. But most of the bears would go to the king or the people below him, and they would eat, and they would eat all the treats, right? But at some point, we learned goddamn better. We said, no, this shit sucks, right? This like multi-tiered hierarchical system of like land servitude, where like the majority of people like never get to own anything in ever their lives. So you will own nothing and be happy. Okay. Right? That contradiction of like, I am an individual with a conscious agency and get to do things, right? Always get to serve. A lot of the time, the people here ended up being. You have to remember, this system is not only cruel, it's fucking violent. It's fucking violent. That's why this exists. That's why this guy's here. To hold this whole thing, this is what we call the state. L'État. We will no. Powder. Gunpowder. Harm. Symbols. Let's say this one works, right? This is what they do. They're the bad guys. But only, even if these guys are a part of the community, right? Generally, their job is to make sure that none of these guys fall out of line. Sometimes, you gotta remember, a lot of the time, they wouldn't do that, and they would just, like, focus on the fact that whatever, I'm not doing all that. The fact that they would do that multiple times because there are other states nearby who want to come and attack them, and so they use this as a measure of not only going outward, right? You make a wall, you make a membrane, you make people who protect you against your enemies, right? And sometimes those people, if some of these people end up becoming your enemies, these guys come back here with no issue. That's just what that is. If the state finds that what you're doing is wrong, there's no issue. But what is the state? What is the state? It is this collection, that is this union of people, right? Let's see what Hegel says. Hegel on the state. All right. The state is actually the ethical ideal. It is the mind, the qua, the substantial, the will manifest and revealed to itself, knowing and thinking of itself, accomplishing what it knows, and so far as it knows it. Basically, what it's saying. That's a lot locked and loaded, right? He's unpacking into the idea that we have no agency. Humans have no goddamn agency. We can chirp into the wind, but we will flow with the way that the world works. We will flow with the Tao, right? The world will go no matter what we do and what we try to do against it. That's just what's gonna happen. But in order to give us individual agency, in order to allow us to affect cause and effect, he says the state is the collection of minds, the aggregation of minds that gives us a higher power that allows us to affect agency on this level. It's teamwork makes the dream work. I'm actually gonna change this. Explaining Hegel. This is Hegel, right? That's what's his name? Oh, it's spelled with an E, with two E's. The state exists immediately in custom, immediately in visual, immediately and immediately in individual self-conscious and knowledge and activity, while self-conscious in virtue of its sentiment towards the state finds it in the state as essence in the end product of its activity and the substance of its freedom. Necessarily, the state is the individual's right internal concept of what we as a collective are going to want to do. We as an individual, we as a collective want to do something, right? And this is what I think of it, and this is how I wrestle with this self-concept. And that self-concept that resolves after that is the state, right? You have to have a little friction to resolve into something beautiful. Follow the signs. Remarks penetrates the inward gods of the underworlds and the mind of nation, Athene, for instance, the divine, knowing and willing itself. Familial piety is feeling. Ethical behavior is directing by feeling. Political virtue is the willing of the absolute end in terms of thought. That's their comment on that. I'm gonna tell you, I need to text someone to get me some tea. Let's run that back. Maybe this guy might be more Hegel than Hegel. Read this to me, bro. Read that again because I was busy trying to fix the audio. Inward gods. Gods of the underworld. The underworld. The minds of a nation. Provide. Feeling. Intuition. Political virtue, as in doing good, is the will of the absolute end in terms of thought. You know, sometimes you think if you can just read these things, they can make more sense. That's not even Hegel. That's the remark. Unless Hegel wrote the remark. I could be wrong. Whatever. The state, is absolutely rational in as much as it is the actuality of the substantiality in which it possesses the particular self-consciousness. That consciousness has been raised to consciousness of its universality, right? The state is absolute rationality, remember that rational mind, the one that can count, right? The one that sees different values and can tell the difference between values, can see the difference between light and dark, and doesn't just go by their feelings, doesn't just go by intuition, by ethical behavior, by feeling. Family piety is feeling. The quality of being religious. Religious is doing that feminine energy. You can have I feel like organized religion is an abusive mom. Organized religion is a person who is generally willing to give you insight into your emotion, into how you feel, and is there to support you into your well, not like supposed to. Like, this isn't like every single person has to do these things, right? No. But just like generally this archetype is seen as to do these things, right? This archetype is generally seen as to do these things. That is what that is to be like genuinely like if you were to say femininity isn't bad, what would you say femininity is? You can say it's what people like define it as, right? My experience of femininity, as a person who does experience femininity, is intuition. Is knowing without knowing. Letting your gut do a lot of the talking. That's what it is to me, and that's what it feels like. Whereas what the masculine would be the rational, would be the thinking analytically, the creating logic structures to justify your means, right? And absolutely that's what those archetypes can like issue. And there are issues with both of these archetypes, and I think both of these archetypes are resolved when they rub together, and then you rub them so hard you smush them down into a little tiny like ball of powder, and then you blow it into the wind and you piss into it. That's what I think about gender. Just do all of the things. You can have rational mind, and you can have irrational deductive instead of inductive, feminine, stupid, kind of reasoning, kind of you can do that. That's not a bad thing, even though it's seen as like lower on this social totem pole, which is what happens, right? Sometimes socially, some of these people turn on some of these other people because they're seen as breaking like a rule in a little thing that we do in this thing, having a social hierarchy, except in this way we do it backwards. We have majorities, minorities. Remember, it's kind of like a diamond, except now you can say that all of these guys are gone. This guy's gone, right? Except in Britain, I guess. Couple other places, Saudi Arabia. These come back here, right? Now this guy's in charge, right? We can say there's a couple of them, right? We could say this guy represents the owning class, right? This guy, when it was in that other structure, right? He would have represented the craftsman, the smith, the fisherman, right? The maybe even the local farmer, right? And these local farmers and these whatnots, right? These people who owned their own land, right? Who owned their own land, whereas some of these people, if they had any of those freedoms, would use it like via the commons, right? Would use like land that they would own in common, right? These guys would own their own land. They would section off land. Crazy. For themselves. And say, this is the land that I use and I make the profits in this profit exchange because I own this land in a circle, right? That's all mine. But because that is the case in their eyes, let's clean this up a little bit. Let's see who has what now. Look at who has what now. This organized system of people with the dark one left over. Whatever. Whoa. Okay, how do I undo it? How do I stop doing that? Close path. What the fuck just happened? I said I would clean up and then I, started babying around with some bullshit. Okay. Whatever. These guys exist here. Some of these guys have that. These guys still use this, right? These guys have these together, right? But these guys do have this. They, in fact, have maybe a little bit. But maybe a little bit. But remember, These guys have all of it. Now, the craftsmen who owned their little plot of land now get to say what things are. Why? Why did the king go away? Why did the little craftsmen get to say what things are now? Because the king got to say what things are because who told him that things were how they are? Frickin' church. That will work. We will say, oh, okay. Can we rotate it? No. Certain proportions, no. That's like St. Peter's Cross, isn't it? Isn't that the one? No, wait, isn't that the one that's upside down, or is it? Which one's the one that's like X-shaped? There's a cross in there somewhere. Doesn't matter what it looks like. All that matters is that what is here is represented by the church, right? This, let's say this is like an angel or something, right? This is what is represented by the church. We'll say this is the church. This is the what gives the king authority. But at the end of the day, the church gets that authority, right? That's why organized religion is kind of like an abusive mom, right? At the end of the day, this is the one with the power. This is the one in the household who gets to say who does the dishes, right? Even though the king does the says what's going on. Older brother might do like the beatings or whatnot. The overseer, the cops, the friggin' the whatnot, right? The proletariat, the lumpen proletariat, and you gotta remember this bourgeoisie right here has now existed for a while, has seen the way the world works, and has seen the general fall of the substantiality of this figure in the way the conversation is talked about. Where is this X factor? Where is this thing that the church does, right? I don't feel it. When I think of the church, I just think of like, bruh. I just think of like, nah, not much. That's what I think of when I think of the church, right? And so, what happens when Nietzsche says God is dead? I'm just bringing up quotes because it's pop culture. Why the hell not? When Nietzsche says God is dead, declares God is dead, right? What happens is these people lose their meaning, right? They lose their meaning in life. They lose their meaning to keep going. They lose their meaning. They lose their want to go and make food. They don't want to go and make food, right? Because who are they making food for? They're making food for the craftsmen or the nobility or the goddamn king over here. Who why do they listen to the king? Because they listen to the king because he says this X factor gave him this authority, this god, right? This like thing that they understand is real, that they understand governs their lives, right? All of these people know that it's real, right? And so the king says that it said, hey, trust me, right? And so they trust him, right? Sometimes that's the authority of the church. Sometimes this is the pope. Sometimes this is the king and then the pope on top and then the whatnot, right? Sometimes it's the goddamn Dalai Lama, right? Whatever. No, not. Oh, that's disrespectful. Sometimes, I apologize. Sometimes this is the Dalai Lama. Sometimes this is Buddha. This is someone who is like a living intermediary between this X factor and you, who says they have an authority because they speak with this X factor, right? And these people then use that understanding that this X factor is actually dead now, has fallen. I think about maybe 100, 200 years ago at the maybe start of population boom, right? If you were to give a date to it, I don't think it really needs to have a date, right? But at that moment, when these people that fell, right, they realized this guy is kind of a sham, right? His authority rests on kind of nothing. There was nothing there. There was nothing in that space, in that X zone. There's nothing there. So the king loses favor. People throw him over. Revolutionaries. That's what happens in France. Then we get the metric system, right? People are doing agriculture, doing labor. Okay, let me see if I can. No, nothing. Sure, whatever. That's as close as we're gonna get. That's a sickle agriculture as well, right? Who are these people have not figured out that the inherent like fact of like this hierarchical system is wrong. They just learned that whatever this guy was saying his authority rests on isn't true. Authority itself doesn't lose any value, but his authority does, right? And so they're like, whose authority do we listen to now? Right? Whose authority do we listen to? And these guys swoop in and say, hey, listen to my authority. I run this like little thing called commerce, is where we get like goods and stuff traveled around and stuff. You guys don't really do that. You guys maybe like trade between yourselves and whatnot, like and like do a lot of and rely on the importation and deportations on the importations and exportations of goods and services, and you rely a lot on the giving of entertainment. Generally speaking, we like slop. We like slop. We like slop. We're Treatlerites, right? And these people recognize that, and so they're like, okay. We're gonna slide into this spot. We're gonna slide into this because hierarchies. No. Hierarchies are still inherently valuable. Hierarchies are still inherently valuable to people. That is the fact of why people do a lot of things. Therefore, they listen to whoever's the strongest, and some of these people do that a lot more than others, right? So within these, right, we can say that this minority population, let's say it grows, right? And they're able to split into factions, just as this majority population is able to split into factions, and has split into factions over whether or not they've done enough overthrowing, whether or not it was just the king's authority that needs to be questioned, or most authority that needs to be questioned, right? And we need to have more freedom and more liberty and whatever, or that there's like no freedom needs to be questioned, not like none of these things need to be questioned. We're good. Their authority holds, right? Their authority holds for certain reasons, and certain reasons will differ for certain people, right? Actually, I'm doing this wrong. No, I'm wrong. I'm right. These things will hold for certain reasons. We've gone far enough, right? These guys say, no, we gotta go a little farther, right? Like the status quo is not enough. Status quo is fine. We just gotta change things up a little bit, right? The status quo is perfectly healthy. You guys are stupid. In fact, I'm starting to reminisce on what we had a couple days ago, right? We need to go back way to the past. There's an ideal past in the future, and I have ideas as to how to get there, right? I don't think that the way that the world works right now is adequate. I don't think those guys need to control the way that we work in the same way that the kings did. I think that we need to create radical reforms and create and recreate the way that our governments work, right? Away from this system where these guys, the ones who own now, who not only like crafted the thing and own the way that they were crafted, now don't craft the thing and own the way that things are crafted. These owning class people, the ones who like Jeff Bezos, this is those Elons of the world. This is those big shots, those kahunas, right? This is those people, and they're saying, I don't know. I think I should keep all this money because what I felt was I did so much work in collecting all the resources and saying, okay, now you put this together and you'll get, maybe like a little bit more. All right. But that money continues to grow, and that money continues to grow, and there continue to be more inequality, and this contradiction continues to grow, and people start to say, maybe they shouldn't own more of the wealth, the homes. They own where I live. They own all that. Maybe we shouldn't own it. And they go to like, oh, I see. This is another time for us to create revolution, right? But this is an anti-capitalist revolution, right? And we need to overthrow and take back our right to choose how we work. And we need to seize the means of production. And we are going to do that this is the anti-capitalist, socialist, right? Where I want the workers to own the means of production. And this is the person who says that I support the ambitions of socialists around, and I say that they are going to push the world in a direction that I deem valuable, in which none of these guys exist anymore, because these guys, oh, what the freak? Start pulling their own goddamn weight. Oh. And now, these guys are proletariat. Don't forget to count in the lumpen proletariat. This is my folk. This is the people who are run down at the bottom of society, who are marginalized, who require a voice at the table to be able to make sure that they are also given some space. Because sometimes when this happens, there's a bar and the lumpen proletariat are still left at the bottom of this supposedly non-existent hierarchy. On the nose. And because we love treats, these guys are gonna say, look, we love treats. You guys gotta come over to our side. Oh no, okay, maybe I'll take some treats. And you'll be like, what the fuck? You'll be like, what the fuck? But it doesn't have to be that way. And some people don't. And still like take the treats and still like use them. But also take treats that are also tools, like a telephone. Unfortunately, no. Socialism does not mean no iPhone. Even if that iPhone, unfortunately, is used for some real bad activities. Actually, if these knights who are back here, who are like defending on the outside, who come back here, not only defend on the outside to defend like one tactic that these guys on this side of the thing use to like justify these guys being like up here, which is the fact that this is here, which we'll get into in a moment. But also, these guys in the modern day are used by these guys, but at the end of the day, really, these guys, to say, hey, it's our time to commit acts of violence unto these people for saying that we should low-key commit acts of violence against these people, even though we commit acts of violence against these people and it was fine, right? That's what their job is. And a lot of the time telephones are made with this one in Congo, the mines, even in socialist paradise China is not safe, unfortunately. 早上好 to the world in China. Red note. If I can get some clips, I might put some Chinese context or things on, post some stuff on Red Note, subtitles. That'd be so interesting. But whatever. Then these guys, the lumpen proletariat, the ones who work, but maybe work like weird jobs, but also or like maybe the ones who work. Some of these guys are like the lumpen proletariat, the ones who work weird job and like are like incredibly prestigious, right? But also, a lot of that time, like actors. Actually, I don't know. Let me validate. Are actors lumpen proletariat? It's late. Don't judge me. Boom. Our actors lumpen proletariat. Lumpen proletariat is an underclass devoid of class consciousness. Coined in, well, actors do have that. Is devoid of class consciousness. Marx Friedrich Engels coined the term in the 1940s and referred to the unthinker lower strata of society exploited by reactionaries and counter-revolutionary forces, particularly in the context of revolutions of 1848. They dismissed the revolutionary potential of the lumpen proletariat and contrasted it with the proletariat. Among other groups, criminals, vagabonds, prostitutes are usually included in this category. Porn stars, OnlyFans models. This is people who they say are the bottom of society, or the ones who are like holding us back. I'm just interested as to whether or not that is the ragged. Also actors. That's also just black. That's black people. That's slaves. That's or like slaves, but like slaves whenever they're misbehaving, and slaves often misbehave when it comes out that they have a certain sense of agency that they want to accomplish. And that comes back to here. How do you collect people's agency to make them refuse to say anything about your aggregation of all of this ability to decide people monetarily, right? How do you change their minds, right? So you look at a little something called the state, right? And here, the state is absolutely rational in as much as it is the ethical abstential, the ethical actuality of the substantial, in which it possesses the particular self-conscious, that once consciousness has been raised, to its consciousness of its universality. When I hear consciousness of universality, I think ego death. I think conscious unity. I think this idea, but as it comes from a non-dual tradition in which there will come a future in which everyone is aware of the cosmic joke in which we can then kind of vacation about in reality. And it is about thinking about things that will get us towards that conscious reality that the state arises, because that's the logical endpoint of rationality. This substantial... I'm starting to sound like him. What it's saying is the logical endpoint of what people are thinking, right? Whenever people think, right, is this is this conversation, is this striking, right? Let's go back to this, right? Whenever these guys do have conflicts, right, and they fight proletariat versus this police class, right, and what's it called, and they skirmish and they grind against each other, and the bits fly off and they pummel each other to dust. Then it turns out they realize neither of them were fighters in terms of what that fight was for. They were actors. They were playing in terms of doing the not their will, not fighting with intention to hate, fighting with the intention to fighting not with your intention, but with this one's intention, and saying, hey, this one, you should fight that person, and this person fighting back because they have no other choice. Removing their agency, this person controls agency using this, which is the police, which is the enforcement of rules, and these rules are the hard set in stone reality of what Hegel was trying to describe, the hard set in stone legality of what this is. The ethical mind quota. What we want how we see our collective self-image, how we see ourselves as a group, as an idea, as a nation, right? And where we want to go. That is what we want the state is, right? And the laws are how we make it physical, how we make it real, how we give it a body. And then we use it in certain ways. We use its newfound authority and power because we see it as following our will, right? Let's say North Korea, right? Because there has been conversation about North Korea lately, right? There's been a lot of conversation about North Korea lately. I don't know if music is appropriate here. In this conversation about North Korea that we have had lately, what I will say is that one truth that I know I'm aware to be true, I will not say I know, is that North Koreans tend to have a very high favorability of their government. And some will chalk that up to that is because they, oh my god, obviously because they're brainwashed. Duh, right? But hold on. Hmm. I'm trying to figure out if North Korea is liked more than it is disliked. Um. All these questions. Oh my god. Do North Koreans like North Korea? Okay, that's the one I want. Do North Korea the Korea Times Business Insider? Okay. I trust Business Insider generally. Reuters is one of their positions. The Center Strategy and International Studies Beyond Apparel released polls that shed light on one of the most obscure areas of global studies, the opinions of ordinary North Korean citizens. We don't know a lot about that. Kind of a shame. North Koreans have 15 million citizens living under oppressive totalitarian regimes that freely detains or even puts to death citizens that stray from official messaging in any way. I'll have to get a source on that. Simply listening to outside media is not sanctioned by the state and can result in death. That would suck. But small survey in which gives a voice to those living under unimaginable scrutiny reveals wow. Out of 36 of the people polled, 0 said that the country's public distribution of system of goods provides what they want for a good life. Only 1 said they do not joke in private about the government. While it may not seem like a big deal, these who enjoy free speech can readily make jokes about their government, considering this 2014 finding from North Korea's Free State. State surveillance permeates the private lives of private citizens at all times to ensure virtually no expression of the critical systems. Citizens are punished for any anti-state activities or any dissent or expressions of dissent. They are rewarded for reporting on fellow citizens for suspected of crimes. Awesome. The picture painted by Beyond Peril's report. Who is Beyond Peril? Not that I distrust them. This kind of goes beyond my narrative, and therefore there is a intuition to cover all the bases. And if that turns out not to be the case, I will leave it be. And that's what we need to do. Creeping sovereignty. What is China building in the Yellow Sea? Creeping sovereignty. What is China building in the West Sea? What? What is this? Progress at the much delayed Yellow River. Huh. Significant progress of North Korea-Russia road bridge. Significant Korea-China standoffs of the PMZ. Wait. Hold on. What is China building in the area around the Korea-China Provincial Measure Zone, PMZ in the Yellow Sea in the West? Is it really only for fishing, or are there dual nature or capabilities we should be worried about? Yeah, what? What is China? What do we really know about 13 boys? 1 agri, 2 aqua cages, the integrated management platform that China's placed in the area. China believes structures in the Yellow Sea and its harassment of South Korean vessels resembles creeping sovereignty, gray zone tactics that Beijing employed in South and East China Seas. Watch now for policy recommendations on how the U.S. and Korea should react to China. Oh my God! This is a pro U.S. imperialist. This is a pro U.S. imperialist source. This source is basically saying, the enemies of empire are doing something odd, right? And I have no way of commenting on the veracity of how bad this claim is, how true this claim is. I'll say that's crazy if true. If it will make my groceries any cheaper, I'll care a bit more. If not, I don't think that my state, as in like us as a group, should really do much about it. I should have a say in this agency because I am a part of the group, because I am a part of this state. This state, which is the collective self-image, right? Close the window, bro. Oh my God. Nice try. No. NorthKoreaInfo.com. Korea Economic Institute. Okay. North Korea's strategic play. This seems a lot more credible. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un attended to China. The appearance on. We'll read this much, and then if it's not interesting, we'll decide against it. That's what it does. It is. It is. I know that. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm asking about, though. Key patrons. What caused the shift? Anything about the people? Outcomes. See, the thing about skimming, right? If you want to skim through really quickly, just read the first sentence. Usually you'll get a gist of what the rest of it is about. Maybe you'll read like the first 2 sentences and then guess if it's like a super complex sentence. But like generally, usually you can just do that. If you have a hard time just like skimming regularly. Well, I do have a hard time regularly skimming. There we go. An important question going forward is whether Kim will reprise. China's consistently accepted the... No, I need something about the people. Do the people know? Are we gonna go to Reddit? I guess we're gonna go to Reddit. A documentary I watched a while ago. A North Korean lady gave a tour guide in Pyongyang, acknowledged that South Korea was richer, at least materially, and kind of surprised that she acknowledged it publicly. And I don't remember the name of the doc, and well, I come across it. I worked with a lady who escaped from North Korea and was living in Texas. Growing up, she had little concept of anything outside of Korea. They were indoctrinated to believe Korea was the size of most of the earth, and they were told that all humans and achievements were by Koreans under the leadership of Kim. They were basically told that the rest of the planet was complete wasteland and was torn in poverty. Wow. That's what that person says. That's according to OK_jump20. That's my source. But that is understandable. They knew nothing about movies. That's when you live in a world without a lot of economic opportunity because of American sanctions, and is still trying to economically recover after 2 genocide level conflicts with both imperial powers, one that surrounds you, one that doesn't, Japan and the United States, back to back, and then you say, okay, no, we actually want to say that like these guys, right? Like this state over here, or like whatever. This state over here, which is like the United States, which is the hegemon, right? Which is at the top, right? This hegemon at the top, which is the United States, right, gets divine authority like on the world stage amongst states, because amongst states they have no ability to say otherwise, right? Because you can use some of these knights to do some statewide bad things, and we can have our occasional bright looking up and coming etat and self-image, and it's going the right direction, and it's going amazing. Let me keep this actually in its right position. Japan, wait, no, Korea, North Korea, okay, and it's coming, and it's going in the right direction, right? And then it gets to a certain point, and oh no, turns red. Oh no. Oh no, and it's such a decline, and you can tell after a certain point. You can tell after a certain point. This is, I'm gonna say archetypally, this is Obama into Trump and into the years that followed. Economically, we've been going downward, but economically, and as to the states, as in like our collective ambitions, intention as to what to do about it, has been going rightward, because there is no narrative, because we've been silent. The left has been silent this whole time, especially the lumpen proletariat who sits to the left. But now we need to say, hey, what's up, right? And we were talking so much about what was going on with the left earlier. But why do we not talk about the left? Because it's not interesting. Because it's kind of not fun. It's kind of lame. Why is that at the right? It's kind of silly. What am I saying? What's kind of silly? Oh, why? Okay, why have I not talked about the left? Because the left is lacking meaning. Let's finish this Korea thing. As far as they want to know, the North officers, overseas, and diplomats from around the world within their borders, Felix Abbott wrote, and huh, okay. North Koreans know a lot more than they think. What is the original question? Why does it say know much? Do they know? Okay, not the. Okay, there's a lot of North Korean defectors who talk about their experience adapting to South Korea and generally say, well, they expected things to get better in South Korea. They were shocked by how much freer and more prosperous the South really was. I mean, a lot of them also had that because they're getting paid a little bit. Some of them say they humans were the ones pulling the trains. So I don't know. Some of that's like obviously propaganda. You can't be like, what the fuck? You can't be like, hey, yeah, I mean, it's not even 10 a.m. and this NSQ Reddit, not Harvard thesis, just broader thoughts. This is NSQ Reddit, not a Harvard thesis. My thorough thoughts, having read up on the history over the past 2 years. This person is Unk. All right, this is Unk's opinion, right? Stuff in the DPRK is pretty grim. Most tourists curated tour of Pyongyang and DMZ and a couple other select sites, and that's it. People who travel to some side of China border towns can tell you to observe North Korean farmers using pretty old equipment. Chinese nationals who take the train to North Korea to some of the gambling sites talk about how underdeveloped it is compared to China. There's a lot we don't know about North Korea and what goes on there. It's called the Hermit Kingdom for nothing. It has 2 borders, of which are pretty heavily policed, as it allies to keep its distance A lot of people don't speak the language, and even Korean itself has developed both sides of the DMCs, and a lot of people don't speak the language. Can that be true? What? Do North Koreans speak Korean? What do I even look up for that? Am I just misunderstanding that? Wait. Hold on. A lot of people don't speak the language. Even Korean itself has evolved on both sides. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm stupid and he's stupid. No, you're not. You're just misinformed. Not just misinformed. Like, people do this about black people too. People say that we aren't speaking English. We're speaking poor broken English when we say certain things and we use certain speech patterns. And certain speech patterns will sound wrong and all that. And well, that's just because these populations were segregated. And that's what happened to the people who within Korea had this leftist revolution and had meaning behind it, because they had a cultural figure. Let me see figure. Let me see what color. We can say this cultural figure will be here. Is a guiding light under the people, right? And is usually pretty passionate. We can say that he says, all right, come here, we're going leftward, right? And these people follow in that, and then go and then they do the deed. Where is it at? There. There's the death. It's up there. And then boom. Or it's a conceptual death and they're turned that way, right? It's violent revolution, or they are conceptually violently revolutionized because their agency is taken and changed, meaning their sense of self, as in sense of what they want to do, is going to be affected as well, because they are revolutionized. In a way, they have died. They're a new person, and they just become this because ideally you get rid of this line, right? And you say, what is this line there for? Because this guy owned the means of production. Now we say no one owns the means of production. Meaning what? Meaning this like a factory, right? Or like let's take a like your teddy bears, right? Your boss, which had taken all the profits from the teddy bears. You guys now get to decide what you want to do with your teddy bears and your profits when you sell it between each other, and your hammers and how to introduce it, and you get to freely choose how to disperse money, how to disperse black people, and how to disperse black money, and how to disperse black tools, usually. Because of segregation this is how it happens. And then this happens. But that's okay. It doesn't have to happen like that. If we say that, now we live in a world in where we get to decide how to organize ourselves. And how are we going to organize ourselves? We're going to organize ourselves based on what we do, right? Let's say we are people who want to make this, right? Do this money, right? And there will be a couple of us. Right? And we will collect together, and there will be a couple other people who account for that money, and they will be nearby, right? And some of these will obviously be black, right? You get some teddy bears, some of the black teddy bears. You get the hammers. You get the hammers all grouped together. Now you get all the teddy bears grouped together. Right? People are free to associate based on who they want to associate with. Right? And not only do they associate with people who are like willed. Turns out, you remember, diversity is our strength. Shoehorning in. Diversity is your strength because you have a bunch of people. Look what's in here. You have diversity of thought and perspective because, look, we have black people are included in this conversation. People are included not by like immutable characteristics of who they are and organize in like-minded communities based on such. No ethnos conversation here. People should organize based on what they do, right? And then not have like a leader. Let's say a state, right? Or let's say a king or a state, or a boss, right? King, leader, state, or a boss, right? Who gets like higher position than them, but actually gets like an equal position of them, and they become like the manager, and they're mixed inside, right? And they just get like a job, and now that's starting to look like an organization, and you can start to do that in a lot of different spaces, and then suddenly the parameters of who's different. Sometimes you get a black guy who becomes a manager, right? These guys kind of like their job was to enforce the fact that this guy this guy had power, right? And this guy was using this guy to keep his power. If we just like say, oh, we don't want that, and we're just gonna hang out with who we want to hang out with, right? And you can be damned, right? Then we collectively have this, right? But we have to be able to protect ourselves, and we have to have agency, right? We have to like group together on this, and we can start to see like a lot of these divisions get dissolved, and things just look like fun patterns. Sometimes, like if it's useful, we can have teddy bears here, and we can have hammers here. Sometimes, if it's useful, we can have dollars here. We can have bunch of wheat. 2 black farmers. And one farmer who says, hey, maybe this is what we should do, right? And people discuss among them, and then they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. All right, then we're gonna do this, right? Is everyone cool with that? And everyone's like, yes. And if someone's not cool with it, then we're like, okay, why? Right? And we can do this on as small of a scale as possible in order to say that, in order to like address the problems as they come up so that they don't become a big thing. That's why federal states often have a hard time like holding together, right? This is generally like some concepts of anarchism. And this is a practical step-by-step kind of guide as to how to get to this vacationing spot, because we're passing around the things that everybody needs, right? What is stopping everything from being free? Right? Is I want to guarantee that I'm able to not die. Right? I want to avoid this from happening. Right? And if I want to eat, let's say I have a treat, right? Let's just call it a treat, right? If I want to eat, let's say it's an exotic treat. It's like a limited edition, handcrafted by the manager. Yeah, it doesn't matter, right? I'm going to have to create transactions to be able to get said food, right? But why do I have to create transactions to be able to get said food? Because someone else had put in labor, right? And I need to compensate for that labor. If we can compensate for that labor within the system itself and not rely on the burden of the individual compensating for that labor, we can relieve an individual from being born in a society where they have to pay 20 different people $40 different dollars for them to be able to afford life. $40 to 20 different people, bro. $200 for like utilities. Rent's like thousands of dollars. 100 at least a band. Right? Like food is a lot. Right? All of these basic necessities, right? If we had a way where like we could pay for this, like, and we wouldn't have to pay for it, right? Kind of like healthcare, where we could have like a single payer system where we all put our money in together and we say, all right, we're going to pay for every single person here because we have enough money to be able to do that, right? If we have a system in place who's able to aggregate those resources, right? Some people say we should resurrect this state figure, right? Some people say, hey, this state figure kind of like uses that. If we have like this idea of, because the state has died just like God had died, right? The state had died just like God had died. Especially the hegemonic state under capitalism, under the idea that capitalists need to own most of the means of production, and not the workers, and not like everyone else. This state had died, but we can resurrect the state. We can bring it back, right? We can bring its authority back, and its authority now is to say, you groups of people will get money You groups of people will get food. And now, because this guy is like central in the middle of all of that, you can be like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's the guy who like helps everyone to not die. That's why, from my understanding, it was that North Koreans didn't hate their government because they understood that their government was at least trying to do that. That's what a centralized government which is following socialist principles would do. That is what a centralist state would do. That is what the laws are intended for. But if you don't do that, right, you have to remember the fact that the state being resurrected is like the concept of the state as like a useful tool, not the state's actual power over people's agency, right? Because it has died in certain minds, yes, of course, right? But it hasn't died in everyone's minds. Most people generally think that states and on actuality are like well and alive, especially the united ones. The united one is not well and alive, but it is alive. We are on our last breaths, and the people who are hoping for the one person's execution better watch out, because that one person's execution could very easily spill out into a lot of people having their execution and the entire state falling. It could happen. There are other ways to mitigate harm. But anywho, this state comes back. Is saying that this state actually had said that we need to resurrect an ideal person, right? The way that this state works, usually it builds a lot of its authority on an ideal personality, right? And the other one also builds its idea on an ideal personality, but on the old hierarchical scale that we saw. But now this ideal personality is not only above the state, they are the state, and they are God, and they have supreme authority over these guys. They are money, they are capital. Their word goes. And usually that means minorities experience death in order to satiate the right. Who gave them that authority in the first place? The minorities on the majorities on the right who well, actually the minorities on the right who actually enjoy that kind of thing. This is fascism. And also, they're robbing you too. Some of the majority leftists also see this stuff and get angry because their money is also being siphoned. But how do you get to this place without using the state, right? Because you have to remember, this is actually what is happening on the outside, and we got to figure out how to create a barrier to stop that, right? We got to use some examples we have of in the past, right? We could use some people who watch others who intend to cause harm to networks of mutual aid. And these networks of mutual aid are built on nothing but the fact that we trust each other to do the right fucking thing. And the fact that if we don't, we will all die. There we go. Now people care. Now people are engaged. Is because if we don't, we'll all die. And so we have to pull this around something, right? And this is the problem with the left. The left doesn't have something to put here. We can have material analysis. We could have dialectical materialism and material analysis, which puts this right here. We can have Christian anarchism, which puts Christianity back here. But wait, Christianity isn't the only thing that can still fill that meaning void and can still say, what is the thing that gives us an authority to say gives us what is the thing that we want to position ourselves to be as a collective that will orient us together? That what is the thing that we can agree on? What is the thing that we can agree on? For a long time it was Christianity. Hopefully it will not soon. For some people it might be liberty, right? Hopefully it will not soon be whiteness. This X factor is the problem with the left, I think, and I have a proposal for this solution to this X factor is to remove materialism from the picture for a moment, and to recognize the fact that materialism can account for meaning, and we can understand ourselves better in terms of ideas, and how our ideas interact, and then follow that and use that to tell a certain story, and that certain story will guide us as let's say the one world religion, right? Capitalism is a world religion, was the world's religion, was the X factor, right? The abusive mother, right? The narrative that we tell ourselves, this narrative, this is an intuition, this is a story, right? As opposed to this rationality. It coats itself in rationality. It coats itself in a certain authority used that's a masculine authority to give itself that, because it's patriarchy. It's patriarchy. It says that masculinity is the strongest thing in the world, and therefore it will use masculinity and it will use that parameter as strength, right? And it will use that parameter as strength and will say it is good. And it will say that parameter of strength that is good. And it will say that parameter of strength that it is good is the only parameter that matters, and then men will end up on top, and then the natural consequences flow of that, and patriarchy ensues. This is a certain idea coming to light. Ideas are awesome, but some of them guide certain people in certain directions. And there's ways that we can account for that, and there's ways that we can change that. We just gotta find an X factor that we can agree on. I propose that this X factor be consciousness, awareness. Dude, I just lost so many people. I don't think so. I actually don't really think so. I think a lot of people are definitely feeling this. Feeling that there's an aura in the air that tells you that something is up, and I'm being fed lies into my space of awareness, and my reality is being shaken up right now, and I need to understand what the fuck is happening. And who is I in that sentence? Because that is the only thing that cannot be an illusion. And in that, the only thing that can truly be I is the brute fact of awareness. And really necessarily only when you're thinking about it, or only when you're experiencing it intentionally. Otherwise, it's a hologram. Everything else is a hologram. Ooh. Let's see what Hegel has to say about this. Remark. If the state... Oh, wait. This is Hegel. This is... Yeah, okay. This is Hegel. This is the abstraction. Yeah. Oh my god. I'm so cooked. If this was Hegel and I was like, what the fuck? I was the abstract, so just so much harder. I was wrong. And I'm stupid. This is Hegel. I had so much trouble with this one. How am I gonna... I'll be fine. If the state is confused with civil society, its specific end is laid down as the security and protection of property and personal freedoms, and the interest of individuals as such becomes the ultimate end of their association. If the state is confused with civil society, if it doesn't know what to do, then its specific end is laid down as the security for what it sees is what is most important for the people who still kind of have some power, which are the people who have property, who own property, and their personal freedom. And the interest of the individuals becomes the ultimate end of the state. And it follows the members of the state is something optional. But the state's relation to the individual is quite different from this. Since the state is mind objectified, right? Since the government is our collective mind given a body, it is only as one of its members that the individual himself has objectively, genuinely, individually, and and an ethical life, has objectively genuine individuality and an ethical life. It is only by the members of that individuality that individuality Okay. Let recognize you're born in a black box. When you're born, you know nothing. You know absolutely nothing, and you are even before you're born, you know a little bit of something, and what you know, as in like what the body is aware of, right? The meaning there is probably some awareness in there. Is that there is some light and there is some dark. There is a difference between light and dark. That is the first sign that the black box is not like a black void and is empty, and all that exists for that point of awareness is absolutely nothing, and this will not be remembered because it wasn't a thing that happened. But it is an experience that could be experienced by an awareness that an awareness would not have known, that it would have been aware of, that it would never have like cried over, and it would have experienced forever and ever and ever and ever, and that's what it's born into. And that's the simple purification, in that there is no one around you. There is no one around you. It is just you and your awareness. And that unification, and you recognize that it's just you, and eventually you recognize that it was always just you and everyone else wasn't a hallucination, but was in fact you. And that unification is the aim of the individual, and not everybody realizes that. Because that's what it means to live an ethical life, is to try and attain that recognition. Since the state is mind objectified, what mind is that one of its members, the people in the state, will reflect what mind is, and because they are a physical object, they will reflect that in a physical life, and what that, like, in intention, what that drive comes from is the unification of the self, with all other selves into an omni self, which is no self, which is all love, which is all tranquility, which is all peace, which is all nothing, which was never none of it, which is bittersweet, and which is funny, which is entertaining, which is confusing, which is at the start and the end of the circle of life. Rationality is taken generally in the abstract and consists in the thorough going of the unity and the universal and single. Why do I even bother? He's describing what he understands to be like the fundamental like way that mind organizes itself to create reality. I had an idea that might be useful to understanding this. Enter non-physical machines. Hold on. There we are. Enter non-physical machines. Two cellular. Okay. There are two types of life. Boom. Oh my god. We're gonna take there are two types of life. There are life, and then there are machines. But I don't think life and machines are too different. I think the difference between life and machines usually that we see, we can say there's I think the best way to describe it is if I just like explain. Cellular life is machinery. Uncontroversial. Non-cellular life can also be machinery. Why? Why are these things machinery? Because they are systems of things that exist. And we observe them to exist. Therefore, they exist, and we can see that they are systems of them. We don't know what they are. We can say they're atoms. We can say they're thoughts. Whatever. We know those systems, and we call them machinery. And we can also call them life. We can also refer to non-physical machinery. Non-physical life. And I say non-physical life because you also have to consider what the self is. The self is non-physical. The self is memories. The self is your self-concept. Even if there is the default mode network, which does like produce the self, which is a like default mode network does not tell you your internal experience of the self. That's not what the default mode network is built for. It gives you a self-reference. And it gives you a self-reference that you consider to be yourself. But the self is all that's around you, baby. What you consider the default mode network is the ego. This is the default mode network. It's a pattern of the brain region. It's a pattern of the brain. Information. It's like it shows up on MRIs and it highlights when people are like thinking about the self and activating self concepts. And that's non-physical. Is the experience of that. The experience that we have of that is non-physical. We can say that's life. And so we can say there is machinery and that there is life that is non-physical. And then there is also life and machinery that are actually non-life and machinery that are cellular. Cellular non-life would be dead organisms or organisms that don't meet all the criteria for life, which I guess wouldn't necessarily be include having cells like inherently, and so things like fire would then enter the qualification for life, which would enter non-cellular life. Fire is alive. Ta-da. And the non-viruses are alive. Well, viruses can be alive. I forget why they're not considered alive. And non-cellular, non-life, / non-machinery is systems that just don't work, don't do anything. They have no agency. And if they have no agency, they also don't exhibit the tendencies of life, or aren't able to be brought back as conceptually useful. Let me just read. Music change. A non-physical cellular machinery, non-cellular machinery, and non-physical life / machinery, and the non-life machinery counterparts are 6 categories of being which can be referred to. Non-physical machinery is an organization system of moving components that exhibits qualities such as self-preservation, reproduction, adaptation, and sometimes even apparent agency, despite lacking most or all qualities, including language, ideology, states, memes. Memes are reflections of genes, and genes have like cellular process and are the components of life. And memes, as we understand them, are conceptual packages of a bunch of different memes that are like old and like saturated, and it's the amalgamation of those like different memes together, old memes together, and old concepts together, right? Because memes just means like concepts that are like shared culturally. We call them new memes, but those are really constructions. At what point you can call it an organism? I think you can call it an organism when it starts behaving like language. I think you can call it an organism when it starts behaving like if society started behaving in an organized manner. I think in a certain way you could call that alive. In a certain way you could call that living. In a certain way you could call ant colonies alive. In certain ways you could call ecosystems alive in that function. And I think you should. Non-physical non-machines are a fundament or a system of non-moving components, including individual thoughts, right? Right, they have no agency, they can't do anything, but like once they're put together, they can actually do stuff. Awareness, once they're put together, they can actually do stuff. And voids in thought, voids in idea, nothing. This is the opposite of what that means physically, because it's non-physical. Duh. I forgot what I brought that boy up there for.